The next crisis may not begin on India's borders, but it may hit us before we realize it. And that is the theme of the much-awaited new book by Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon and Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor. And in that book, they answer a pertinent question that's on all of our minds. Is India ready for the next crisis? We are so grateful to be joined by both of them. Welcome to Fauji Days, sir.
Thank you.
So you are both extremely decorated officers, one from the Army, one from the Air Force. So what made you feel that it's the right time that two soldiers should come together and work and write a book on this topic? And I'd like to have both of your opinions on that.
We know each other for many years, and especially after retirement, General Dhillon and I, we have been in touch for the last about 13, 14 years now.
Right, sir.
And we did a couple of programs and a couple of events together. And then I realized that we have a similar kind of a thinking. The basic ingredient is to groom the next generation of Indians who are going to lead this country, and to share whatsoever we have learned till now with them in whatsoever way we can. And he, being an accomplished author with 3 bestsellers against his name, he in fact gave me a call a day when the war was, it's in March sometime,
Yeah.
that I keep seeing your writings, I keep seeing you on the television, I keep seeing your debates, and there's a lot of Air Force element also. So let's, work together and with a common aim and passion, write a book on the ongoing Iran war, and that was the starting point.
Excellent, excellent. What about you?
Similarly, you see, as Air Marshal Kapoor says, we share a long cherished history of our interactions, especially on the matters strategy, diplomacy, internal situation, and India. And we have been on a lot of debates also together on television and all that. So when this war started, as a military person, we were looking at only the military aspects.
Yeah.
And as he very rightly said, there was a mix of Air Force, Army, and strategic thinking and international relations. But when we started researching the war per se, then we realized there is a bigger concept. Is India ready for the next crisis? Was India ready on 26th of February, 28th of February? Was India ready when the peace accord was signed? Will India be ready in next 10 years? And that is when we started writing this book together. And as you said, whatever we have learned in the military, it's not only that Army, Air Force is not only about fighting. They groom you strategically, groom you in international relations. We all have served abroad and traveled abroad extensively. So we put all that in this book, and it starts with the war, maybe before the war. It covers the war period, and more importantly, it covers how it impacted the world and India. And as you very rightly said in the preamble, was India ready? Is India ready? Will India be ready? And I think it has come out very well.
Excellent, excellent. So, Air Marshal Kapoor, you just mentioned that, it came together somewhere in March when the war had just began. But as youngsters, of course, we read the newspapers and we figure out that Feb mein start hui war and this is how it's playing out. But I'm sure there were a lot of underlying factors that we don't know about, and the book probably begins before that, how this war actually came into being. So can you just shed some light on that?
General Dhillon took that part of that book.
Okay.
We divided chapters, we divided subparts, we divided our core competences. And there were endless meetings, calls, video calls, to put it in perspective, hundreds and hundreds of pages which this book has. Each line was read across, discussed.
Yes.
That's how we...
Yes.
The book covers everything starting from history. How the genesis came of the Persian kingdom, how the Persian and Arab relations were there, how that area became suddenly so important after discovery of oil in early 20th century, how the Westerners came in and started putting their stake on that oil, how the Westerners brought in their own people to subvert the nationalistic leader which Iran had selected in 1953.
Absolutely.
How Shah of Iran was catapulted. By that time, how the Gulf states started to rise with oil, how the relations started to soar, how the Iranian Revolution came. In the meanwhile, how the Israelis came up. Israelis, came up in existence only from 1948. Especially how the Israeli Air Force came up, the nuclear capabilities of, there's a full chapter on the nuclear capabilities of Iran, which was the bone of contention when
Yes.
Dhillon just said 28th February. So how did the Iranian nuclear things came up? So there's a chapter on that. Then from there we came on to war per se. How the
current situation.
and it is not this present war, it is how the skirmish took place in October 2024, June 2025, when the B-2 bombers flew all the way from America and bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities.
Okay.
How IEA could not, how the Iranians have gone underground, realizing that anything over the surface of the earth will be picked up by satellites. So there's a huge coverage on that. How IRGC has become so powerful that, this thing, and how after 20th February, when the top leadership was taken out, how did the things unfold? So this is broadly about the war. And then coming what General Dhillon said, coming to the Indian context, how well we were prepared or ill prepared on this thing. So the book links all these things and brings it to that.
I think it's very essential, sir, because we don't. When we kind of read a lot of these books, we don't focus on this element of history. It's not kind of something that's been taught to us in detail. So when we read about this war, we somehow don't have that context, to come together and actually understand.
In fact, it's General Dhillon who did bulk of the research, and there are maps, there are tables and other things to substantiate what we have been saying.
Absolutely.
And for a person who has absolutely no knowledge of the region, who has no idea, this book from first chapter will bring him to the last day till 2035 about, so that's how
Excellent. I think very much needed, sir. And I sort of understand where he comes from, because I think he interacts so much with youngsters, he realizes what is needed, as far as...
Very rightly you said, I was about to talk about this aspect. The youngster sees the war as if it started on 28th of February.
Yeah.
The book, as Marshal Kapoor says, traces the history back to the advent of Persian kingdom. Then how the Iran, the Arabs, the Shias, the Jews, what is the animosity?
Yeah.
Then the oil, then the Shah, then Khomeini, and all those, then Israel came into being. So all those aspects, nuclear aspect, build up the Western interest. So all that is the back. Like this peace accord is signed. A lot of people discuss this peace accord. They discuss it term by term. Hardly anyone knows there is a similar accord signed earlier called Algeria's Accord. Now, if you go back to read the Algeria's Accord, you'll find the similarities.
Yeah.
And that accord did not last. Well, it carried on some time, but then it failed. So will this accord also go the same way? So that is how the book connects the dots of the history with the present and takes you to the future. So the research work, as he was saying, was phenomenal, and believe me, we learned a lot while researching.
So why don't we come to that? What is like one thing that really stood out to you? That ये तो मुझे पता ही नहीं था, and while you researched,
there
sort
are
of
so
came
many
across.
things. There are so many things. We had that peripheral knowledge, but we did not know the crux of it.
Yeah.
And it has historical aspects, that infighting aspects, the Western interest aspects, the war fighting which happened. There are a lot of things which the weapon system used.
Yeah.
He covered that extensively in the chapter which he wrote on the war. We were actually not kept aware of certain capabilities of those weapon systems which came to be showcased in this war and which are going to drive the future of warfare. The contact warfare we're talking.
Yeah.
The non-contact warfare, the psychological warfare, the narrative building, and the false narrative, the social media, the media, all those aspects are new dimension of war fighting.
Absolutely.
So we learned a lot.
Excellent.
See, the Americans came, to add to what General Dhillon just said, the Americans and the Israelis came with tail up.
Yeah.
They had just, Israelis made an inroad into Syria. The Americans, could take over the Venezuelan president. They were, so with that, understanding that we had, and the strikes which they did in June 2025, we covered in that, was the best learning experience for the Iranians. in October 2024, after Hamas strike in 23, when the Iranian missiles, 100 were fired, only 2 or 3 could reach Israel.
Yes, yes.
By June 2025, when the Israelis and the Americans came to strike, about 7 to 8 out of 100 could reach. But now, they mastered the art of jamming their iron domes,
Wow.
their radars. They mastered how to counter the attack by the. And by the way, 300 aeroplanes, 300 fighters were used in the first strike on 28th February. Mixed Iranian. So what all
The magnitude of
and
it.
the damage which they created, yet how the Iranians, fought back, having lost their top leadership, their resilience, their this thing which brought them together. And
True.
how he has covered that aspect beautifully. How the ground operations, which were deliberated, there were talks of Kurds being pulled up to fight for the Americans. There was talk of other forces. There was a plan to their paramilitary full Basij, to go rogue and
Yeah.
take over certain. All those aspects were there, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So those aspects, why the ground operations were, not undertaken, why the reluctance on part of the Americans having been deployed, why Israeli Air Force didn't have losses, why the US Air Force had losses.
Wow.
So that aspect has also been covered. So
I think in the course of 2 questions, you're just realizing how critical
now
this
that
book
we are
is
at
to
it.
understand.
Pre-war alliance,
Yeah.
during the war alliances, and traditional alliances like United Nations, the European Unions, the NATOs, all that, why did it not join the war fighting? Why did the traditional alliances did not join? Why were there no pre-alliance wars or
Yeah.
pre-war alliances? And why the urge to have some alliance during the war did not
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
All these aspects, and like you just said, we learned a lot during the research.
and
Excellent.
General Dhillon is saying, okay, there was a stage when the American president was requesting the
Yeah,
NATO
yeah,
people to
yeah,
come,
yeah,
send
yeah.
their navy. Some didn't agree. Some, like the Cyprus, when attacked, the Royal Navy did enter halfway. How the umbrella of security provided to the Japanese and the South Koreans was pulled out by the Americans at that stage, exposing them. So they realize now that the umbrella is never ever going to be there full time. So how the other countries behaved, how Russia and China and North Korea behind the scenes have worked for the Iranians, how Iranian weapons are now precisely striking,
Yeah, yeah.
why their drones and rockets are kept. What has happened now of the Gulf nations? There is a rift now.
Yes.
There is
yes,
a massive
yes,
rift now
yes,
between
yes.
countries who have signed the Abraham Accords and the ones who have not signed. So we have covered that also.
I think it answers more than just is India ready for the next crisis. I think it
And
answers
just for
too
the
many
benefit-
questions.
You use the word, just for the benefit of your young viewers and readers, Krink axis. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. We covered that in detail.
Excellent.
The new emerging realignments.
So I think it is very critical because for us to make sense of even geopolitics in general, we need to know all of this. Unless we know, there's no way to even 1 + 1 कैसे करोगे? पढ़ते रहते हो, but होता नहीं है.
And in geostrategy, geopolitics, international relations, 1 + 1 is never 2.
Yeah, that's also true.
1 + 1 is
That is also true.
because either of the one
Yeah,
may be 0 or maybe 100.
true. True.
So it depends. So na hathi ke daant.
Kuch aur. So, General Dhillon, coming to the Indian context, so India over the last 60 years has been surprised at many times, whether it was 62, whether it was Kargil, then COVID. So, do you feel India was usually underprepared, and have we learned from our mistakes? What do you have to say on that?
Mac, to answer this question, first let me give you a perspective at the international level. The world got impacted by this war. It was a nobody's war. Some person had some ego, some people had some clashes which were going on for centuries. This Arab, Shia, the Muslim,
It's long-standing.
Jew, Shia, Sunni. It's a long-standing thing. It was going on, off, that type of thing. Suddenly, on 28th of February, this war began, and it was a nobody's war till that time. Suddenly, on the 1st of March, within 24 hours, it became everybody's war. Because everybody in the world is using crude oil. Everybody in the world is using the natural gas. everybody in the world is using the energy which comes from this part of the world. And suddenly there was a news tightening around that supply. The logistics got hampered, the economics got hampered, the stock markets crashed and whatnot. And there you realized that this impacted the whole world. And how did everyone face it? How did everyone came out of it? There were a lot of things which we were not prepared as a nation. There were a lot of things. But overall, we discussed each and everything. We discussed economic aspects, we discussed the policy aspects, we discussed the strategic aspects, we discussed the diplomatic aspects, we discussed even the diaspora. We discussed the currency. We discussed the logistic, the chain supply chains. We discussed the alternate sources of energy security. We discussed the energy security route security. We discussed the regional alliances to provide security to assets. So all that has been discussed. Some we were prepared to an extent. Some we were prepared just. Some we were not prepared. But overall, we were reading the book.
That's a cliffhanger to leave it on. So, Sir Marshal Kapoor, there's one question that I discussed with General Dhillon in the last podcast that I had, and he gave a lovely answer on that, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as well. We spoke about interdependence, the fact that, just like he said, within 24 hours, the entire world started getting affected. So there's a lot of interdependence that we have across the world, whether it's people, countries, etc. But that leads us to the point where we feel that we have to be independent within ourselves, within our resources, within the means that we have. So what are your thoughts on that as far as India's independence is considered?
This has also been covered in that book. If you recall, after Op Sindoor, the Prime Minister started to move around the countries in a very big way.
Yeah.
Large number of European countries and other countries came to India to sign the trade agreements. So with Europe realizing that their reliance on America cannot be endless, with America threatening Greenland and other energy supply lines, and with the Russia-Ukraine war extending since 2022 October, the Europeans have now started to feel the pinch because the missiles and the rockets and the other assets which they have were taken away by the Americans to be used in this conflict. To replenish them would have taken a long time. So they, like General Dhillon said, the supply chains are. Now, if you recall, in the last 3 months, the Prime Minister has moved around a huge amount of countries. If you see, I have written and I have spoken, it is called a fish hook. So what he has done is he has gone to either that head of the state has come to India or the Prime Minister has gone there. So it is South Korea, Vietnam, Japan, Indonesia, Fiji Islands, Australia and New Zealand. So this one forms a fish hook. The other one forms from there into Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, again islands. So this again, so he is trying because on if I recall 3rd or 4th of March 2026, the Iranian ship Iron Dega was hit south of Sri Lanka, which was going back after the exercise. So now India realized that the war has come to our waters, the Indian Ocean, and to secure Indian Ocean was the biggest challenge. The Prime Minister stopped over in UAE while going for the summits, and they have signed an agreement with UAE to store Indian oil in UAE.
Okay.
So this very few people know. So till we create infrastructure here to store, because we didn't have that storage capacity, like he said, for both liquefied natural gas, for LPGs, PNGs, and fuel. So energy, and if you see, India is the only country which did not increase its fuel rates, commensurate, very minimal, and that too towards the end. So how did we absorb that kind of a loss on daily basis with crude touching 120? When the war started, it was around $72. It touched $120. So this, without increasing the cost, the burden which has come, the role of diaspora, how much can we leverage with those countries, because the maximum remittance for India comes from the Gulf countries. So how a fine line in dealing with all the Gulf countries, because our diaspora lives in all these countries. So that aspect has been covered. along with military, how Atmanirbharta, that was the question. How we realize that the dependence on anybody else now cannot be taken.
It can't be the answer.
Because like Russia, they themselves are involved in skirmish, and the supplies to India for our equipment is getting delayed.
Absolutely.
So we have to be self-reliant.
Self-reliance, absolutely. And I think that has been...
Country of
Yes.
our size, our population, our economy, our military might, our democracy. Interdependence is good. But when the interdependence gets impacted, like in this case, then independence is a must.
Yes.
And in interdependence also, one is the 50-50 interdependence. You depend on them, they depend on you. Second is the imbalance in interdependence. That imbalance has to be in our favor
Yeah.
because of our sheer size, economy, and might. And that is when we will be able to absorb the next shock.
Absolutely.
Interdependence and independence have a very fine balance. And all these aspects have been covered in some form or other, especially with absolute focus on India. India's present, India's future. Indians' present and Indians' future, including our economy, our military, our diplomacy, and other aspects, energy security.
True. And so talking about how this war has been played out, this is probably one of the first wars that our generation has seen live. And when I mean live, it's literally minute by minute, second by second updates that are happening, what is being fired, what is happening, what somebody is saying, how it's being quoted. So of course, although we have discussed this in light of Operation Sindoor as well, it has become a war of narratives. You are having to fight on these fronts as well, which is something, again, the world is still very much adapting to. It's not something that has been kind of achieved so far. So do you think this battle of narratives has become more important than the actual war on ground? How has that now shaped the wars in Central?
Mac, war fighting and narrative building, they will go hand in hand in all future battles. In fact, I would say that narrative building will start much before the first round is fired. It may start 6 months prior, it may start 6 years prior. Because narrative building is a must to justify the war. Remember the first Iraq war, the weapons of mass destruction. That narrative was built over time. And when the war finished, the weapons of mass destruction were never found.
Yeah.
But Saddam Hussein was gone. Saddam Hussein was gone because he had become rogue.
Yes.
So that way, battle of narratives and actual war fighting will always be moving together. With a little stagger here and there. And why only narratives? Why only... Today the battle has become battle of tweets.
Yeah, pretty much.
The markets go up and down. The world markets, the trade markets, stock markets, they go up and down on one single tweet. So that's how the world is now connected world. Apprehensions of people are being attacked. That suspicions of people are being fortified. Whereas actual thing may be something different. And then it all depends whose narrative is spread better. You need to have infrastructure of your, networks.
True.
That, gone are the days of newspapers and TV networks alone. Today we are in the age of social media. These influences, those things are being used. And
I think in fact even announcements are coming first on Twitter and then to everybody else.
Absolutely.
So it's very different in terms of how we are.
That's how it works. So this is going to be the future phase of the battle.
The new normal in a way.
The new normal. And we got to understand this. This is how it's going to be. The contact warfare, Second World War had a trench warfare.
Yes.
That means you had to actually run into a trench, kill that man and then claim victory. Then became contact warfare, armor, aircrafts, artillery. Now today it's more or less absolutely non-contact warfare. This whole battle, Operation Sindoor, no one crossed the international boundary line of control.
Yeah, pretty
This
much.
war, no one crossed the international boundary. So it's a non-contact warfare being fought in the air. And that's how the Air Force is so important in this battle in space. Cyber.
Yeah.
All these aspects have been given a great, you can say, portion of focus in the book.
Excellent. So I'd like to get your thoughts as well. Being from the Air Force, you would also have something to say about this new normal in terms of war fighting and how we are now looking at wars.
If you recall, before Pahalgam last year, General Asim Munir was addressing the non-resident Pakistanis. And there he came up with two-nation theories, and he says the Hindus and Muslims cannot stick together. So, like General Dhillon said, the narrative has started much before.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Pahalgam happened later.
Much later. True.
So the masses are indirectly. So whatever is happening now, because now everything is interconnected. The deep states, the media handling, the leaders are projected from outside. A cause is taken up. The social causes of unemployment and basic discomforts are made as a national issue, and then with that the rogue elements move in, and it's a pattern across.
True.
And one aspect we have covered in this book also, that our neighborhood has become very challenging. So if you see, there was a regime change of Imran Khan in
Yes,
Pakistan.
Pakistan, yeah.
There was a regime change in Maldives. The Gotabaya Rajapaksa government went in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, yeah.
Myanmar had a military coup. Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina had to flee.
Nepal had it, yeah.
So if you look at it, the periphery around India is disturbed. So if you have a disturbed neighborhood, it ties down a growing and aspirational nation. So that aspect is also, how did we manage this aspect, and how do we foresee this thing in future?
Absolutely. I think this volatility does affect us in many ways, and we don't
And
realize
social media
it.
plays a very, very important
Yeah.
role. So through your viewers and others who watch, you must rely on not hearsay, but authentic source. Anything coming from the government, anything coming from any office is the correct version.
Yeah.
Because India is one country historically. Whatsoever is conveyed from a rostrum, it's absolute and absolute truth.
True.
Unlike our neighbors and others, this thing. So this aspect, I feel, the young generation
Fully agree, sir. Fully
should
agree.
look for the government position on every issue, and that is the correct position.
Because it's just like you said, the war of narratives can go in either direction based on how you interpret things and where you take your information from. I remember even during Op Sindoor, कोई 6 साल पुरानी की वीडियो कर रहा है कि नहीं अभी हुआ है, अभी ये हालत है, which is wrong.
Through AI also, now you can't.
Exactly. As the other
ये
aspect.
doctored है कि original.
Correct,
You're seeing
correct,
every day
correct.
now.
Correct.
The leaders' talks have been doctored. So it's very important to not to believe everything what you see on social media.
Fully agree, sir. General Dhillon, to you next. There's a phrase that you mentioned some time ago, which was the new great game. So why don't you just elaborate on them? What is this new great game all about? Who is involved and who is affected?
The great game theory goes back to Cold War era. And we all know about how the game was played, and that's separate. Now, after this war, there were simmering impacts of Cold War. Cold War was being played above the surface. There was simmering heat below the surface, which was emerging. We covered that aspect also. That how that simmering heat below the surface impacted the Gulf region. The Cold War, so to say, was between Soviet Union and the American bloc. But that impact, the tremors felt in the Gulf region. And now the new great game. Now the war is being fought between USA, Israel on one side and Iran on the other side. Impact is being felt by the Gulf nations, whose economy is being shattered, whose oil infrastructure is being shattered, and who are also facing the heat of the bombing either way.
True.
But the economic and the pain is being felt by the world. Russia is playing a part, China is playing a part, and North Korea, Iran, and like I said, crink. And dollar.
Dollar, yeah.
Petrodollar was the main game since 1973. Is it converting to petro yuan? Iran was trading in yuan, that is Chinese currency.
Very interesting question.
And that's how the new great game. Who's going to be the winner of this war? I always said there's going to be only one winner from this war, and that is China. That is how the new great game is being played, and that's how the beneficiaries will be.
Somebody not even directly linked to the
nobody is not
war.
directly linked, but he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of this game after the war ends. Russia-Ukraine is being played on the sides. Russia is very much part of this game. Ukraine hitting the Russian military cargo ships, which were transiting from Iran. That's how the war is expanding. Iraqi territory being used by Irani militia or Irani fighters to hit Saudi Arabia. Yemen territory being used by Houthis to hit Saudi Arabia. The concentric circle of war, conflict, is now expanding to the regions outside this. So the new great game is on as of now. And we talked about this in a chapter in the book.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm not
this
giving
is-
much.
Yeah, no, understandable. Because, sir, but I think you have touched upon a lot of things. Just like I said, the question is bigger than is India ready for the next crisis? There are a lot more other questions that I feel you have successfully answered, and it's sort of give a little bit of insight that you've given us that this is what it covers. So that is excellent. So I'd also say now, when again coming back to the Indian context that we have, and I can get both of your opinions on this. Just like you said, this was one of the first times that within, say, 24, 48 hours, it sort of hit home. You know, we could see the impact that was happening. And this interdependence that this world has, where our kids are also, you know, their families in Gulf mein kaam kar rahe hain, their dependents are there, they are sending money home. So there's a lot of this interconnectedness that is happening. Now, we can't do away with it. There will be families who are dependent on their, you know, kids abroad or whatever that is happening over there. So what do you feel is the, you know, in a very real day-to-day life, how do you feel these kind of wars have impacted us in our homes? Not the geopolitical scenario, but just as in a day-to-day kind of effect.
Before Marshal Kapoor answers this question, I'll just take a small call on point which you made about Gulf and diaspora. See, diaspora, like Marshal Kapoor was saying, remittances are coming.
Yeah.
It is adding to our economy. Now, those remittances are getting impacted. Our economy indirectly is getting impacted. And we covered in the book, leave or stay is the question. For the diaspora in the Gulf countries, whether only the one member is there or the whole family along with the kids are there, leave or stay is the question. Will the Gulf countries or the region or the economic growth which was happening or the ease of doing business and peaceful and lawful nation, will it remain so? Or will they always have to be working under the fear of some strike,
something happening.
From there. So leave or stay was the biggest question for the diaspora. We touched upon that question. What are the implications? Just to give portion of it, suppose they leave and come. What do they do here? Their expertise, their domain specialization was for that place. He may be working in an oil rig. Now here we don't have those type of oil rigs, and if we have, we don't have that type of employment opportunities. So what does this man do? His life has shattered. His children were studying in a particular school with a particular syllabus. Now, if he comes back, will the children be able to continue that education in the same stream? So that individual family, individual person, those kids, nobody's war, everybody's war. That is how this book has touched each and every aspect, starting from the international relations to economic to human.
And how, in case we have done in the past evacuation of Indian people from Yemen, from Afghanistan, from all these wars, if situation so arises, if the hostility is so gone, is Indian government capable, this machinery, to evacuate lakhs and lakhs of people from Gulf back to India? So that has also been touched. How we need to build on our large ships, our large airlift capabilities, our large cargo aircrafts, because not only is it for projection in any, to evacuate our own people back, because everybody working there, back of the mind is secure that in case anything goes wrong. We saw it in COVID also. We saw vaccines reaching or people being airlifted. Any Indian getting stuck anywhere, it's a national policy now. The help and the aid reaches him. So in case the war expands now, it is just still ongoing. The government is already working on contingencies how to minimize this. So that is another aspect.
I think what I'm also realizing from your answers is that preparedness doesn't always just mean military or budgetary. It is so much more than that,
And preparedness in any domain, capability development takes decades to build. Intentions can change overnight. We can't say, okay, no, so-and-so is our friend, so we need not to have a capability against him. Those intentions of friendly intentions can change into inimical overnight. Then what do? You go down to the industry or to the conveyor belt or to the R&D. They'll say, so we'll take 10 years. We can't wait for the 10 years. The way we responded, if you remember, to the Nepal earthquake, Iran earthquake, and then even in Venezuela earthquake, the way we responded with our military hospitals and all, the way we responded even to the Southeast Asian countries during tsunami,
Yeah.
that is the preparedness. And I'm talking only of one field, one domain, human assistance, disaster relief. Similarly, for all out-of-area contingencies, within the region, beyond the region, on the borders. And the next crisis may not necessarily come from the west.
Yeah.
It can come from the north. It can come from the seas. It can implode from within, like the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we need to be prepared for all such contingencies because this crisis will not give you a warning. As you said in the opening statement, the crisis may happen away from our borders, but it will come on our shores within 24 hours. We saw it in this war.
Absolutely.
So preparedness is an ongoing thing. There's never a pause in preparedness. Because recycling of equipment, that turnover of the expendables, and also the people are changing, people are retiring, people are moving around, preparing the new people, practicing, rehearsing, equipment maintenance, equipment upgrade.
Everything is necessary.
And, for a young reader or a viewer, it might sound, it's so very easy to have a hospital ready at 24 hours to go to Venezuela. How do you have those medicines turned over, which have a shelf life? How do you have those doctors trained who have to be airlifted? What do those doctors do when there's no emergency? Can you just keep them at one place and say, okay, aapko tankha milti rahegi, baithiye? No. So there is a lot which goes into it. And then for every contingency, the requirement is different.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a pandemic, the requirement of hospital is different. For an earthquake, requirement is different. For tsunami, the type of equipment and medicines required are different. So that is how you have to be prepared in all domains of the spectrum of crisis. And that brings us back to our question.
Is India ready?
Is India ready for the next crisis?
Absolutely.
I find the answers in this book.
Excellent. I think two definitions, I think at least in my mind now they've opened up. One is the definition of what a crisis means, and secondly, what preparedness means. I think both are very broad terms that we sort of tend to conceptualize and keep in a box, but it's actually not that. From your answer, it's very evident that they're much bigger things and it takes a lot more effort to kind of be there. So we've touched upon a lot of important questions. There's one important question that's also still in my mind. When will this war end? There seems to be no end to it. Even Russia-Ukraine still goes on. US is still changing its, kind of its statements time and time again. So from both of you, when do you see this war actually ending?
So it's already 5 months down.
Yeah.
And more and more countries are getting sucked into, either directly or indirectly. Like General Dhillon mentioned, the alliances are shifting. It was unimaginable just a couple of years ago that the Israeli Iron Dome would be positioned in UAE and protecting them. Unimaginable. It was unimaginable that Yemeni insurgent group would be firing upon the biggest looked up to Muslim power, Saudi Arabia, their assets and their ships. They are closing Bab al-Mandab. The IRGC, which is a parallel vertical now in Iranian scheme of things, has in the book it is covered. Iran has two navies, which we didn't know till we started research.
Oh, wow.
One is Iranian official navy and one Iranian navy which is controlled by IRGC.
Oh God, acha.
Okay, so the Iranian navy is what moved around from one place to the other, but the other navy is guarding and working on the shores of Iran. So this sinking of ships, closures of Hormuz, and capturing of those islands, he is covered that beautifully. How the IRGC Navy has made torpedoes. The American Apache helicopter was shot down in the sea just a couple of weeks ago. First time in the history of warfare, a drone boat without any human being went about 800 miles into the sea. Nobody evacuated both the pilots and brought it back because Americans didn't want to, put their soldiers or sailors for this evacuation if they get captured. How the F-15 which was shot down, what all America lost in that night to recover its downed pilot. $500 million worth of assets were burned by the Americans, not to leave anything behind for the enemy.
My God.
So these are the new things which are happening and how the warfare is changing. So that has all been covered.
There's a very important chapter in this book, the warring nations and their war strategies. A full chapter is there. What was the US war strategy when it entered? What was US and Israel's war strategy combined? And what was Israel's independent war strategy? Because a lot of people confuse, they both went as allies and they must be having the same strategy. No, US didn't have a strategy to finish off Hezbollah. That was Israel's strategy.
Yeah.
But they had a combined strategy. And then what was Iran's strategy? How did Iran prepare for this war? USA has interest starting from North Korea to Taiwan to Afghanistan to Iran to Greenland to Venezuela to Cuba to all over the world. And they have to be prepared for all these contingencies all around the year. Iran was only preparing for one war for the last 40 years. And that is exactly the war they fought. They did not build aircraft carriers because they knew they can't defeat the might of American Navy at the high seas.
True.
They did not build very strong air force because they knew they cannot fight the American and Israeli air force in the skies. They built the Navy for Battle of Choke Points, Battle of Hormuz, island of Kargil, island of Keshan. So they said, okay, we will fight on this terrain with this weapon systems, like you mentioned, torpedo boats and other things, sea mines, coastal guns. So they were preparing for this war. They were not preparing for the war which the enemy wanted them to.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So, it is how the whole concept of warfare has to be seen, how a nation fights the war which it wants to fight. You do not copy the West or Western concepts or Western weapon systems just because, they're trendy and they are being projected as the best. You fight the war based on what is your necessity, what is your borders. So this is also covered. What are India's requirements? Starting from sanctions to protection of foreign territories. Our needs are different. Our
geography is so different.
Geography is so different. So this aspect has been covered. And most of it towards the end is the analysis about how India was prepared or India is prepared. But one thing about the war, you said, when will it end? I thought it ended 7-8 times already. With every tweet.
Actually, that's as if statements keep changing, the war keeps getting prolonged.
So every second weekend it ends. But the point, more serious note, this war is not going to end very time soon. The kinetic aspect, and more importantly, it's not going to end any time soon. The pain it is going to cause to the world, because the gas facilities which have been hit, the 20 to 25% of the gas production capability has been hit, and that is going to impact the world in the long term. Their infrastructure reconstruction is going to take anything from 3 to 5 years. And if there is more damage, that much more. So war, the kinetic war may end, but the pain this war is causing to the world is not going to end, and that brings us back to the title, Nobody's War, Everybody's War. And is India ready for the next crisis? So this is how in the nutshell this book, and I think we learned a lot. And I'm very sure when your readers read this book, I can guarantee you, on behalf of Marshal Kapoor and myself, you are going to be a better informed human being once you turn the last page in. Do read this book.
Excellent. And sir, so when we do come to 2035, now just from this answer only I'm inferring, you're saying ki one is that we prepared for the next crisis. The other thing is that the repercussions of a previous crisis are also something that we have to deal with in the long term. So the crisis is actually much bigger than we anticipate. So from both of you, when we look at 2035, about 10 years down the line, if India starts today, what does readiness look like? What are the challenges that we foresee, kind of talking about this readiness and actually being ready for the next crisis?
We were typically service provider for many decades. The manufacturing and the industry did not get that impetus.
Right.
With everything has a plus thing, with America clamping down on H-1B visas, with clamping down on professionals looking for citizenship and other green cards being denied. I was reading around 15,000 people are Americans, Indian Americans, are wanting to come back. So the Indian government now has offered a SOP for them in crores of rupees, asking them to come back. I know of a lot of defense people who are now presently working as professors of practice in IITs, Indian Institute of Science, and tech institutes. So what has happened now is the shift is moving from typically DRDO to private.
Yeah.
Now, if you see, we are starting to do MRO of saffron. We have already started building C295s in Baroda. The Rafael is wanting to set up a factory close to Nagpur because they have an order of 500 plus aeroplanes, and Bordeaux, where they have, cannot manufacture more than 40 to 50 per annum. So they need assembly lines outside. Where is the workforce? Where is the people who and whom can they trust? They cannot go to Russia or China. So the only country they could look. Plus, look at how our Vikram 1 just skyroot lost just in the first attempt.
Yeah.
So we are manufacturing chips, we are manufacturing semiconductors, we are manufacturing state of the art. To answer your question critically, we are in the right direction. But we need more of private industry support. We need more and more young minds. You know, those 20 years with laptop have to be seated on the battlefront, managing the drones with the armed forces people. So that is the future when the civil military interface becomes to that extent that it becomes a national passion to get the results going. That is how we have forecasted for 2030.
Excellent.
And if our viewers can take their mind back to the nuclear tests which we did. Once we did the nuclear test, the Pokhran test, and when the world laid sanctions on us, you know, every challenge has an opportunity within. When the world put sanctions on us, ISRO, Indian Space and Research Organization, ISRO started working independently in spite of the sanctions. And today ISRO is a success story. If those sanctions had not happened, ISRO would have continued to be dependent on foreign technology. And look at what ISRO has done today. They're launching satellites. Similarly, this crisis has given us a feeling that we need to be independent, the point which you made earlier, independent of league interdependence. And as Marshal Kapoor says, there are a lot of areas where we will now start looking at, okay, this we have to do on our own. There are no permanent friends or enemies. They are permanent interests. Our interest is our concern. हमारी लड़ाई हमें खुद लड़नी है. कोई आकर हमारी लड़ाई नहीं लड़ेगा. If India is growing, nobody is happy. ऊपर से जो ही बोले दिल से वो कहते हैं कि ये कैसे हमारे सामने आ गया. ये तो कब तक? There's nobody. How come he is now sitting on the high table? And now talking about the high table. After this war, what was Iran's war strategy, the bottom line? Bottom line was, Iran does not want to lose the war. Iran wanted to survive through this war. If Iran survives through this war and does not lose the war, Iran is a winner. If US and Israel do not decimate Iran comprehensively, they are not the winners. Iran at the end of the war would like to come to the negotiation table as an equal adversary and not as a defeated power, what happened to Hitler in Second World War. So as on today, Iran is fighting this war to sustain itself, to live through this war, so that tomorrow on the negotiation table, it has already happened. The negotiations happened twice, once in Islamabad, once in Switzerland. And Iran was equal adversary. That was Iran's war.
So even our definition of victory is going to change. You know what actually winning means. You know, it may be a prolonged war, but you may be winning.
Israel and America started on the same page on 20th February with different objectives. And yesterday, Netanyahu was in US. Americans did not agree to any of his demands, so they are not on the same page too. So how these 5 months, because the end goals are different. The end goals for them is survival. For them, the goals are, de-arming them and regime change and whatever other things. So when the goals don't, there is no commonality, this thing. So if you look at it, NATO countries are not with them. The Gulf countries are now parting ways, thinking that the umbrella which they promised is not there. Israel is not happy because the whole purpose for which they wanted this conflict. And America, like he mentioned, each day, announces
Something is
something.
changing.
And out of vindictiveness in the last few days, they have started hitting the desalination plants. They started hitting the bridges. They have started hitting the nuclear facilities. Those key infrastructures, which will take years and decades to rebuild. So they want a common man, to feel the pinch, so as to push them for some. So this may be the largest strategy.
Absolutely.
And another important aspect which we covered is now is talking about because they're both fighting. If they both are fighting, तो फिर राजीनामा कौन करवाएगा?
हाँ.
Who would be the mediator? Who would be the peacemaker? Who would be the deal breaker? And even in a family, when two brothers or two siblings have a interest conflict, you generally get koi chacha ji, koi fufa, bua, who has a say in the family. Who would say, nahi beta, tu maan ja, tu bada hai, tu chota hai, tu aise kar le, waise kar le. And her word or his word will be accepted to both the parties. Because they have a respect for the chacha, mama, bua, jo bhi. Now here, the mediator is the least respected. The mediator can't even tell anyone कि भाई आप मान जाओ. The mediator is looking for his war booty. कि इसकी लड़ाई में मेरे को कितना पता मिल जाएगा. So there is a problem there also. The mediator,
Absolutely.
how, who is emerging as a mediator? We are writing this chapter in April. In fact, late March. And we wrote there, Qatar is emerging as a potential mediator.
That time, Qatar was nowhere on
the scene. We wrote that because our research told us that.
Oh, wow.
And later it emerged. Now, Qatar has been accepted by both of them.
Excellent.
Not Pakistan.
Excellent.
So we have written why both the efforts by Pakistan failed and how Qatar could emerge as a key mediator. And that in the...
That's why it's important for two soldiers to write this book. That military mind does kind of come together and really give us answers. This is wonderful. I think this book carries so much more than honestly I anticipated. And it answers so many questions that I feel all of us have in our minds as we read the news and what is happening. And the fact that now we realize for a fact that, wars are never ending. This is how the world is going to look like. So being prepared within our households and as a nation together and contributing wherever we can is very, very essential.
And make one more important aspect. This book, when we started writing the book, we had a very detailed discussion, and one common denominator which we started with was the language has to be absolutely non-technical, non-jargonic. That means if you are reading something on the war, the weapon systems, you will understand each and every aspect of it. If you're reading something on how the economy worked and how the economy was under stress, you will understand each and every word of it because no big terms have been used, no big jargon has been used. And if you're reading about the diplomatic aspects, every aspect you will understand in the language, the way you have been brought up. You may be in any field. You may be a student, you may be a housewife, you may be a young entrepreneur, you may be a CEO, you may be a services in any service. You may be running a bookstore, you may be a soldier. You will understand each and every word of this book. And that's the big concern we have.
I think so. That's the hallmark of your books. And I'm sure even knowing Marshal Kapoor's kind of conversation on social media with youngsters and both of your focus, I'm sure this is going to be the hallmark of that book, the fact that it is for youngsters. So before we conclude, why not have one message again for youngsters in light of what is happening in this world, what is changing? One message from both of you. So if you can go first.
As a youngster, you are the hope for your parents, you are the hope for your siblings, you are a hope for your teachers, you are a hope for your friends, and most importantly, you are hope for this great nation. Live up to this hope, live up to this feeling everyone is putting in you. Live up to this faith and confidence everyone is putting on you. Like we see, everyone is betting on you. You are the future of this nation. Accept the harder right instead of the easier wrong. We both are ex-NDAs. This line was in the NDA prayer. God give me strength to do the harder right instead of easier wrong. So do that, then sky is also not the limit for you. Thank you and Jai Hind.
To you, all young boys and girls, if India, which is envisaged to be a big power by 2047, which is not far, it's just about 20 years from now, the people who are going to drive this thing up, our nation, to that level are you people. And you must interact with people with positive attitude. The glass can be looked as half full and half empty, and both is correct. But in my opinion, you have to look at half full and try and take it to the brim with your effort. And no work is done individually, it's all a teamwork. So together, as the whole nation and the youth, you have to put your differences aside and take our country ahead. This is my message to all of you.
Excellent. I think this is the best note to end it on. And I must say, sir, once again, this book is something I'm also personally really looking forward to. It's something I have been wanting to know about, but just like you said, the jargon just overwhelms you and you're not able to understand how it is. So I'm sure this is going to give us so much more information that we needed, and we will finally be able to answer, is India ready for the next crisis? So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
If you are looking for a signed copy with your name and a message and signed by both the authors, the only place to come to is the browser chandigarh@faujides.com, or simply call up 9878-799-100 and book your pre-order. All your pre-orders will be personally signed by both of us with your name and a personal message for you. Read good books, read original books, be a good citizen, obey traffic rules, listen to your parents, listen to your teachers. Thank you. Jai Hind.